This episode we are going to take a look at the load and sharing view. If we look at the left side, we have the folders and patches. At the right side, we have the patch information, a tag field, comment field, file management buttons, and you probably recognize these if you're an iOS user. A very handy patch overview. If we look at the left section, you can see different folders. 2.0 are actually the new presets made for the 2.0 version of TC-11. The presets in the 1.0 folder was made for the 1.0 version of TC-11. Then you have favorites, group, which I created, tag search. The all patches folder is always available. It shows all the patches stored in TC-11. Now the actual patch files are stored in the documents folder and can be found in the iTunes app file sharing section of your iPad. The patch name, and very simply, I don't think I need to explain it, but it's basically where you name your patches. The tags field is very useful. Now there are already some tags in there and you can easily put in your own. When you're tagging your patches, if you press the flag button, you get a list of known tags that you've used or that have been put in before that you can choose from, so it makes it easier for you to tag your patches that way. I can also add that some tags are managed by TC-11 and cannot be added or removed by the user. I suggest you tag your stuff because it's so much easier finding something, and it's good to have tags when you're using the tag search function. The comments field is great, and I love when developers put in comment fields for patches and presets. I always write down what I'm thinking at the moment, and if I have some other ideas that I want to get in there, but maybe at that time I might not have time to do it, so I always write something down instead of writing it in the notepad or on a piece of paper like in the old days before pads and everything. The file management buttons are very straightforward. If you're an iOS user, you know what these means, but I'm still gonna explain them. The plus sign lets you create new patches, and you have 7 different templates to choose from. I will in future videos show you each and every one of these templates and how to utilize them. The next button is the saving button, and it's basically where you save your patches. TC-11 will keep a working copy saved in a temporary location in case you leave the app. However, if you read the manual, it says it's a good idea to save your work permanently by visiting this view. And me, personally, I also recommend saving a lot. Let's say I want to use this but create another one based upon this preset, patch, whatever you might call it. You just hit the copy icon and it will copy it for you. It will also rename it. The first time you do it, it will rename it to copy and then copy 2, 3, 4 and so on and so on. The paper basket is a dead giveaway and it's basically the delete button. Now the overview is really handy because the overview lets you see visually straight away what a patch is made up of, what modules are in there and the way that they're connected. One thing that seems to confuse new TC-11 users. How do you preview patches when you're editing them? And the answer is simple. This little icon here. What is that? Well, if you grab it and pull it out, you can see it. It's actually a playable field. This playable field will put itself over anything at the space where you put it. Okay, that came out very strange. This is a layer upon all of the other layers. So let's say I move this one over here, then I can't get into the patch name field to type. If I press beside it, then I can get into it. But as long as I'm pressing here, I can't. You can put this anywhere in the viewable area, and it's a very nice feature. Now this playable field doesn't provide you with those stunningly good graphics, but all the controller elements are there. If you're using gyro, it will function. The X and Y positions all works. You can actually play and preview your patch while you're tweaking it. This also works on the patch area, but you don't have it on the settings area. And of course you don't have it on the performance area. That's the playable field, so now you know how to preview your patches while you're editing them. As iOS users, we know what it means when you see dots down below. It means there are more pages to be discovered, so we slide to the left and here we can find the patch organizer. Here you can create and edit patch organizing folders, and you do so by pressing the plus icon and a menu pops up with two options, group and tag search. You make tag search folders to filter all patches by a tag, and a group folder to collect any patches together into a folder. Let me show you how to do that. Let's go into the all patches folder. Let's say I want to put Ascension and Etherical in the same group. So I'll make a group and I'll drag Ascension in here and also Etherical. Like that. If we open up the folder, we can see Ascension and Etherical. To close it, tap the folder again and it closes. Let me show you how the tag search folder works. It's basically meant to filter patches by a tag. Let me show you how to make a tag search folder and what it's for. Press the plus sign, choose tag search, and a new folder pops up. Go into that folder and add a tag. Now I'm gonna use one of the pre-stored one and I'm gonna choose analog. It's gonna filter all of the patches and only display the patches that has the tag analog in it. That way it's easy for me to find the analog ones. You close the folder by tapping the folder and it closes. Clearing and deleting folders is very easy. Simply long press and you'll get a menu, clear and delete. If I press clear, then it will clear the folder. And to delete the folder, long press and choose delete and the folder goes away. Let's head to the next page. Here we have the sharing functions, and you know I love sharing. Here you can see that my iPad has discovered itself, Jakob's iPad, and you have an email icon. To email a patch, simply press the patch that you wish to email and drop it onto the email icon. And instantly I notices that I have a problem with the setting on my camera. So if I move my hand like this, you can see that this is the email window. I don't want to redo this bit. Let's press abort and delete that. Let's say that you and your TC-11 loving best friend is up all night jamming in the studio. You both have iPads, they have discovered each other, and let's say you want to share a patch with your friend. You repeat the same process as you do with the email sharing. Long press and drop. Now it doesn't work for me because I don't have a second iPad and you can't run TC-11 on your iPhone, otherwise I would try to do that. That's all for this part of this TC-11 guide. Keep your eyes and ears open for part 3, where I will show you the settings page. To get to the settings page, we go back to the performance. This is the navigation bar, and to bring up the navigation bar, you double tap this icon twice. Double tap, navigation bar pops up, performance, load sharing, patch, which we are jumping over. I'm gonna do a lot of videos about the patch area and go straight to the settings. So here is the settings menu on the left, and this is where you make the settings on the right. In this, the settings view, this is where you can set global options that are not directly related to the current patch or synthesis, such as display settings and color changes. In the first row, you have background audio, and it says run audio in background. This option forces TC-11 to continue to generate audio even when the app is in the background. So if I press the home button with the run in audio background option on, then audio will keep on running even if I leave the app. And to turn this function on, you just tap it and you can see that it's on, and to turn it off, you tap it once again. One thing to know about TC-11 when you use it together with Audio Bus: you don't need to turn on the run audio in background to use Audio Bus. TC-11 will automatically run in the background when connected to Audio Bus or Interapp Audio. Next we have the polyphony. Right now it says max touches 8. This is actually where you change the polyphony of TC-11. This little icon here is called the knob slider, and you drag it up or down to change the polyphony. The Notes section allows you to change the way that note letters are named. So instead of C, D, E, you can change it to Do, Re, Mi. Next we have patches, and it says restore patch presets. When you press this, you will get prompted with restore missing presets. If you press restore, then TC-11 will scan the patches currently in your documents directory. If there are any presets missing, then TC-11 will find them and copy those presets into your patch collection. But it doesn't overwrite any existing patches. I don't think I have to explain the language option, but you actually have the option of turning on the English language. So if you press it, it will prompt you to restart TC-11. And when you've restarted TC-11, then the language inside TC-11 will change to English, even if you have your iPad set to any other language. That was the general tab in the settings view, and now we go to display. The first option, screen axis, actually gives us a way of inverting the X and Y axis, in effect flipping them. To explain it better, it will flip the high and low orientation of the respective axis. Remember, in part 1 I showed you that you could rotate the screen. When the navigation bar is on, you can rotate the screen. Even if you invert the X and Y axis, the X and Y will always stay in the same positions on the screen, even if you flip the screen. So doing that won't change the position of the X and Y. Clarify, the X and Y axis will stay locked with the physical screen of the device even if you rotate the device from portrait to landscape mode. It can't be more clear than that. That's the Y axis, and this is the X axis. Navigation bar, go to the settings and invert the X and Y axis. Now, reading from the manual, it says it is important to realize that this option is for holding the device in a different way and should not be used as a way to individually flip a particular controller. Each individual controller can be inverted, including axis-related controllers. If you have a stand or a strap that holds your iPad in a particular way, it may be useful to set this permanently. Next we have the performance view, and this is the performance view. So the settings here are corresponding to these little icons and stuffs in here. So if we look at the choices we have here, if I remove the quick load button, then we can't see the quick load button for the presets. Turn it on and it's here. The show patch title, if I remove that, you won't be able to see the patch title down here. Turn it on and there it is, rain fire. The show axis labels are actually these two right here. So if I remove them, you can't see them. The show record button, quite obviously this, but right now we're using TC-11 in an IAA mode inside Audio Share. So let's go to Audio Share and stop the recording, double tap on the home button and close it off. And the icon for Audio Share goes away. As you can see, there is no recording button. That's because we turned it off. So if I turn it on, the recording button is there. The last option of the performance view, show touch amplitudes, I'll show you. Go to the performance view, and when I press here, you can see there's a white circle, not this one, but around my finger that pops up when I hit it. That's the touch amplitude. If we go back into the navigation bar and to the settings tab and untick the show touch amplitudes, then you can no longer see that white circle popping up when I put down my fingers. Let's turn it on once more so you can see it. It's this white ring popping up. Next we have the graphics options. The reduced drawing mode is an aesthetic graphics preference. Turns off anti-aliasing and can speed up drawing on the performance view when many controllers are active. So if this is working a bit jiggy for you, tick the reduced drawing mode and drawing on this screen, all of the graphics will run more smoothly. The draw grids is an aesthetic graphics preference to hide or show grids on the performance view. And I'll show you, this is the grid, and if we turn it off, then we don't have a grid. If we turn it on, the grid is back. Just like that. The draw background color switches between drawing the default background color or a black background. If I have it on, it looks like this, but if we untick this box, the background goes black. Lastly, we have the custom controller drawing, and this has to do with the graphical interface and the way this looks when performing. And here it says override patch controller display. If we press this bar, then we will open up another menu. And as you can see, there are a lot of things to choose from here. It's just too much to explain for this video, so I will make a graphics episode where I'm showing you how to customize the graphics for the performance view and stuff like that. But just quickly, if we look in here, we can see we have the options of all, none, and random. The override patch controller display allows for controllers that are not active in a patch to be drawn to the screen anyway. Each part uses a set of controllers to drive the synth objects by default, and the only controllers that will draw to screen in the performance view are those used by the currently loaded patch. This is to assist with performance, and you can see exactly what touch movements matter and which do not. As I said, it's difficult just to explain it, and I will be showing you this, but it's too much right now, so just wait for that graphics episode of TC-11 guide and you'll understand what it's all about. I can also add that the override patch controller display option is for performers who want an unrelated set of controllers to display in the performance view when they play. This is an aesthetic function only, and controllers that have not been programmed into the patch will not affect parameters, but you can make them show either way using the override patch controller display option here. Personally, I love being able to change colors, and here you have a set of colors that you can use. So if we look at the performance right now, it looks like this. Just for the fun of it, let's go back to display and remove the draw grids, and then we go back to colors and we change it to this one right here. Go to the performance view, and oh, look at that. Oh, I'm loving this. Let's change it one more time. This is quite simple, isn't it? I kind of like that one. Oh, look at that. Yeah. I love this. Don't you just love this? That's how easy it is to change colors. Now, you can't customize the colors. You only have these templates to choose from. And Kevin, it would be a nice thing being able to change the colors and make your own templates. Just a pointer. I think that many would agree on that. Oh, it's beautiful. I actually like the templates already in here, especially the blue, the yellow, the red ones. And this one, this looks very Borgy, like the Borg in Star Trek. And that's all for the color section. Next up, we have the help area, and it looks like this. Here you can download the TC-11 manual, and it's quite handy. I have a laptop standing in front of me with this manual in it, so that I will be able to double check if there's something I've remembered incorrectly. I'm referencing this manual a lot. Kevin, I love these animations that you've put in here. These animations explain some of the symbols being used throughout the app. Lastly, we have the About page, and it is as straightforward as it can be. TC-11, this is version 2.0. Here you can go and rate it on the App Store, and I suggest that you do that. You also have a link to bitshapesoftware.com. And this is the home of TC-11 and Kevin Schley. You can also email the developer Kevin Schley if you have any questions, or if you just want to give him some praise for this amazing app. And as usual, my camera won't show you, so I'll just do this and you can see that this is the email window. That's it for the settings view, and in the next part 4 of this Hack TC-11 guide, we will go into the patch area. And that's to get to the patch view, we double tap the menu button and we go to the patch view. And this is the patch view. It looks different depending on how you've rotated the screen. So if I flip this one, it will look like this, and you no longer have the menu on the left. You can find it up here. This is called the Utilities Popover button, and this doesn't exist when you flip it back to landscape mode. Instead, you get this menu on the left here. More about the menu later. This is the patch overview, and as you can see, this graphical representation can also be seen in the load sharing view when you load your patches. Here you have a quick overview of what your patch look like and the way it's connected. At the side here we have the live preview, and this is the touch area. It's a representation of the performance view right here, except it doesn't have any cool graphics. You can place it anywhere on the screen, and when you want to remove it, you simply just swipe it to the right and it will dock itself up here. So if we look up here, we have the oscillators. Oscillator A, B, FM oscillator, multi-oscillator and granular oscillator. Then we have noise generators, white noise, low pass filter noise, band pass filter noise and high pass filter noise. After that comes the filter, and here we have 3 filters: low pass filter, band pass filter and high pass filter. Then comes the amplitude section. You have an amplitude modulator, the amp and pan. These two are always connected. So if we turn off this, even the oscillators, you can see that these are still connected. After the amplitude section comes the effects section. Here we have downsampler, a wave shaper and a phaser. You have even more effects down here. You have a resonator, a stereo delay and a reverb. But between those, another filter, a low pass filter, band pass filter and a high pass filter. Now the output object is the final destination for the signal flow of the synthesizer. It only has one parameter, amplitude. It scales the overall amplitude of the patch and includes a view meter to help monitoring clipping. Going even further down, here you have the modules, and you have 4 options here. You can insert envelopes, and you can have up to 8. So just keep pressing that until you fill them up, and you'll have 8 envelopes to modulate your sound. You can also add LFOs, and if we look down here, you can have up to 8 LFOs. You can actually have 16 tables. That's a lot of tables to modulate sound. Lastly, you have a sequencer, and you can have up to 4 sequencers to modulate sound in TC-11. This is massive. 8 envelopes, 8 LFOs, 16 tables and 4 sequencers. Crazy, isn't it? If you look closely, up here it says touches. Those are related to all of the objects you see inside here. And if you look down here, it says group. And the group ones are these one you see in this view here. The difference between touches and groups can be explained very simply. It is very similar to MIDI, where each note or each touch has its own note number and velocity. But the whole channel, which is the group ones, has only one CC, like CC7, the volume. To make it clear, for objects in the touches section, each touch in the performance mode gets its own unique copy of the object. This is how one touch can have its own oscillator frequency that differs from the other. Once the signal gets to the group section, the individual touches are combined together and pass through a single global instance of each object. The way that things are connected are fixed. You decide which route the sound will take. Let's say I want oscillator A and the multi-oscillator. I also want some low-pass filter noise, and I want it to go through the high-pass filter. So that is being sent through the amp and through the pan. I don't want the downsampler or the wave shaper, but I do want to send it through the phaser. And then I don't want a filter between that. I want to send it directly to the stereo delay. and that goes out to the output. Very simple. This looks like a long list, but you actually just have the options for changing 2 things. The first one is easy. It says suppress first touch. When this one is ticked, the first touch is suppressed, and it actually mutes the voice that is triggered with the first touch of a group, while still allowing that touch to generate controllers. This allows stretchy patches to ignore the first touch, which is often used as a moving origin point for subsequent touches. Now the next options here are all related to the grid that we can see over here. The grid is actually just a visual helper for the performer, making it easier to know where to touch and where not to touch. In the utilities patch options section, you can change the way they look. You have the custom X grid, the custom Y grid, and you have the radial grid too. Right now it looks like this. We go back to the patch area, nub slider and pulling up and down. Let's just do that fully. Pull this one up, do the same thing here. Go to the performance view and this is what it looks like. 32 lines times 32 lines times 16 radial lines. Kind of cluttered, isn't it? Through the miracle of video editing, I've changed the way the lines are displayed here. With the checkered mode on, the grids look like bars instead. So let's go back to the patch view. And let's hit checkered. Let's tick these boxes for all the grid options and go back to performance view, and it will look like this. Next we have the transpose menu, and it's fairly straightforward. In this view you also set the key and scale and index for patches. You can transpose by +1, +2, +7, -1, -2, -7. And if you look down here, you have the set key options, allows for selection of a key by name, scale, index. Note filter parameters can move between 12 keys. Simply choose a key, choose a scale. As you can see, the set key option lights up with a pulsating white frame around it, and as soon as you hit that one, it sets the key and the scale that you've chosen. So remember to hit the set key button when you've made changes up here. You can also reset all key filters to chromatic, but does not remove the filter. Clear removes any active note filter parameters from the object, returning it to a continuous frequency state. The next menu option is very interesting. This is called the Mutate menu, and this is where you randomize stuff completely. By pressing the mutate, you will mutate everything or make it as crazy as possible. You just never know what you get when you hit that. Those buttons are fun, and every synthesizer should include them. I want to show you what happens when we press these menu options here. Let's take a look here to the right side. In TC-11 you double tap. So double tap Oscillator 1 like that, and we get this window. By pressing mutate, you can see that it mutates everything. Everything gets mutated, but let's say you just want to mutate to a certain degree. Then we go down here, we can see values, and you can mutate values by 5% increment, or 25% increment, or 100% increment. By tapping the 25%, you can see that the values are changing. It doesn't change these settings up here, but the values. But the big mutate button mutates everything. If you look further down, you have options, and you can actually choose to skip certain parameters, constant parameters, waveform parameters, or device motion controllers. So if I tick device motion controllers, when I mutate a patch, it will not mutate the settings for the device motion controllers. TC-11 uses 3 types of controllers to actually modulate sound. That's why you have so much control when it comes to controlling the patches you make. Except from the touches, you also have the accelerometer and the compass of the iDevice. There are so many ways you can control sounds, and I'm going to make an episode of this guide called Controllers that explains the way TC-11 works with controllers and how to use them. That's why I'm leaving out the controllers and trigger section in the utilities menu for now. Part 4 is coming to an end, and lastly, I want to show you the patch detail view. The patch detail view is what you get when you double tap an object. This is the patch detail view. Up here you have the minimize button. Press that once and it will minimize the patch detail view. Double tap to open up. Next you have the live graph display, and this is an oscillator. Here you can actually choose waveform by pressing these arrows, or you can just tap it once and you'll get all the waveforms in a list like this. Down here we have the parameters, and if you look at these bars, here is where you set controllers. There are multiple ways of choosing controllers. You can actually go into controllers, choose an envelope and drag it to this bar and let it go like that. But more about that in my controllers episode. To adjust a parameter, you just press down and slide. Let's say you want to fine adjust it. You tap and drag like that, and you can see a small dot is appearing there, and now you can fine adjust like this. Let's say you don't want to do it like this because you hate dragging sliders. I wouldn't understand why, but you just tap just above the bar, and then you can put in a number instead, like this. Right now, all of the parameters you can change aren't visible, simply because you have another menu in here. Tap and hold, and you'll get another menu. Here you can see what parameters are showing and which ones are not. The one with the plus sign aren't showing. So if I press the plus alt frequency, then the alternate frequency parameter will be visible. Tap and hold to get the menu again, and as you can see, the plus sign has changed from a plus to a minus, because if you press the minus, then you can hide the alt frequency parameter. This is a simple way of uncluttering your surface when you're programming your patches. You can also mutate inside objects. Tap and hold, you'll get the menu up and choose mutate. The way TC-11 is built up, there is practically no limit to what you can do with the patches. You can create crazy patches. It's a very straightforward interface and it's very easy to use. And with this, we conclude this episode of the Haq TC-11 guide. Now please stay tuned for another episode in the near future where I will be going into controllers. I know many of you might be getting frustrated that I'm not making any sounds or insane patches with TC-11 yet, but as you can see, there are so many parts of TC-11 that needs to be covered for this guide to be 100% complete. I want to see an army of TC-11 users out there in the field making great music while looking good at the same time, and that's you there. I will be working hard with the next episode of this Haq TC-11 guide, providing you with the knowledge you need to finger your surface a lot. TC-11 utilizes 3 different types of controllers: touch controllers, device motion controllers, and module controllers, like LFO, HDSR, and sequencers. In a previous part of this Haq TC-11 guide, I chose to skip 2 menu items inside the Utilities menu that you can find in the patch overview area, and those were controllers and triggers. You can use these lists when you want to assign controllers to different things simply by dragging and dropping controllers from these lists. If we look inside here, you can see touch controllers, group controllers, motion controllers, envelope controllers, LFO controllers, table controllers, sequencer controllers, and constant. When you add modules, controllers associated to those modules are placed within these menus right here. So if we check inside the envelope, the AHDSR menu, you can find 2 types of controllers. AHDSR1, which is a group controller with the big circle, and the AHDSR1 touch controller, 3 small dots. You can see that these are assignable by this little icon to the side here. So how do we assign controllers? Well, TC-11 is a modular synthesizer, and right now we have an oscillator going into the amp and straight out to the output. And I want to control the amplitude with the envelope. That means I have to go into amp and simply choose the HDSR. Right now I am controlling the amplitude of the amp with the envelope in touch mode, because as we know with TC-11, when it comes to touch controllers, there are 2 types: touch and group. So let's begin with the touch type. 3 dots. I'm not going to change anything here, and then we go down to the envelope, and it's right here. Right now the envelope is assigned to control the amplitude. You need a trigger to actually start and stop a module. By clicking here, the trigger menu will pop up, and it's the same menu as you have on the side here in the utilities menu. By using the utilities menu here on the side, you can actually drag and drop controllers to where you want them. And you can also assign controllers by using the list here. Now I've chosen to start this envelope with something called touch began. And if we look in here, we can see that we have two types of touch, as you know it, group and touch. And these two differs, and I'm going to show you how. Okay, so let's say we want to control the sustain of the envelope. So we start with the touch type controller, and we are going to choose angle and angle to first. Now when I put down one finger, it sounds like that. Now I add another finger. Right now we are controlling the sustain of the envelope with a angle to first controller. So this is the first finger, and the second one will set the angle. By moving my finger away from it, the animation will get bigger. And as you can hear, I am now controlling the sustain. Now on to the next type of controller, the group controller. So what happens when we use a group touch instead? Let's go to the sustain, open up the menu, go back to controllers and choose group, angle, and here it says total angle to first, which means we need more fingers. Back in the performance view, I put down one finger, and then I put a second one. As you can see, it changes the animation of the circle, but the sound doesn't get louder. Why? Because we're using a group controller. That means more fingers, and I do love fingering my surfaces. Now watch as I put down 3 fingers. The touches gets added up. So that's the big difference between group controllers and touch controllers. The group controllers sums up all of these touches and sets a global value. Now there are more parameters in here, and I will get deep into them in future videos where I'm doing patch design. Right now I just want to show you how controllers work and how to assign them. Let's add a device motion controller. Let's say I want to be able to control the pitch of the oscillator when I roll my iPad. We double tap to get into the oscillator, and we go to the note area, and then we choose motion, gyroscope roll, and roll. Now rolling the iPad will control what notes are played. And as soon as we're using that type of controller, we see this shape popping up on the screen. It's a graphical representation of the position of the roll. Now for the purpose of showing you what happens when we're using the gyroscope to control the note of the oscillator, I'm going to increase the range and you'll be able to hear it. One thing to add, when the iPad's orientation is reset, gyroscope controllers will output their minimum value. As the device is rotated, controller values will increase in either direction around their axis until they reach the extremity of that movement. But let's make it even more crazy. Let's change the type of controller to an accelerometer controller. Let's use accelerometer X. And as soon as you do that, this graphic will pop up and it will show you that you're moving the iPad. Now we chose the X accelerometer controller, so by shaking the iPad in the X position and playing at the same time, you will hear the notes change. That's all for this part of the Haq TC-11 guide. In the next part, I will go into the synth objects and explain a few of them. After that is done, I will go into some serious patch creation where I will show you some different patches you can create. Play a track that I've pre-recorded inside Beep Street's Impactor, another great drum machine that I love. Completely love it so much. Oh my god, I love this one. So I'm gonna play this one and then I'm gonna go back to the TC-11 synthesizer and play that. It's a very simple patch, and I haven't done a lot with it. I've got 3 oscillators going on. So if we go into oscillator A, double tap, always in TC-11, you can see that I'm controlling the notes with the X position, and that's this position right here, like that. And I've set the notes to be played right here, and it's the same scale as the Arabian Nights song. And I've also set this scale, well, how many the range of the notes that can be played from 72C, 84C. So I have a limited range of which notes are, how many notes will be played when I move my fingers up and down. And I've done the same thing with the other 2 oscillators, but they're actually the ones that they make up the drone sound in the background. So when I move my finger up and down, you can actually hear the melody. And if I go into the synthesizer again and turn off that oscillator, you can hear these 2 are making up the drone sound. They're all being connected to the amp and the pan, and a bit of panning is actually going on here. I'm controlling the pan with an LFO, so I get some movement in the stereo spread field. And then it's all going out into a reverb and then to the output. So what I have in the forms of modules, it's an envelope, an LFO, and a sequencer. And the sequencer is making the tone jump in the melody oscillator. If I play this one for you. You can hear that it's jumping like that. That's actually been done with the, let me just move this playable area out of the way. It's been done with the sequencer here. So double tap on that. You can see this here. So get out the playable area. That's how I'm doing it. So I'm sending that signal up to the first oscillator right here. And so I'm using, for the note position, I'm using the X position to play the notes, but I'm also adding an alternate frequency with a touch controller. There's a difference between touch and group. Go watch my guide and you'll understand how that works. And I'm making sure that the sequencer sends out a note to the alternate frequency on this oscillator to make it jump like that. So that's how I get that really great sound. So that's basically how I did it. As usual, Doug Woods, Colin Sweeney, and me.
Hello and welcome to the Sound Test Room. My name is Jakob Haq, I'm your host, and you're watching a Hack Attack episode. Now we're gonna build this patch from scratch. Sounds absolutely beautiful. I love sounds like that, and TC-11 is a perfect app to make stuff like this because visually it's very, very enticing. So we're gonna build this from scratch, and if you don't know about TC-11, or if you want to know more, if you have it and haven't gone back to it because you think it's too complicated or something, just go check out my playlist. It's gonna pop out right here, right there. This is called a card. Annotations doesn't work on mobile devices, but these cards do, and in them I put links, videos, and other stuff that I talk about. So that's good to know. Go check that playlist. Very thorough guide on TC-11. It's not completed yet, but if you watch the part that are up there right now, you'll know loads more about the synthesizer and the way it works. What we're gonna do first is we're gonna make an initialized patch. Let's go into the menu. You do that by double tapping on TC-11 and going to the load share page, and then we're gonna start by creating a completely new one. So that's the plus sign right there. We're gonna choose the default one, not tuned. I'm just gonna give this a name, and I'm gonna call this theremin. That's not how you spell theremin. Return, and then save it. So let's go to the patch area. Now what we have here right now is basically a sine wave oscillator loaded, and it's connected to the amp. You can see here you have a playable area. Usually when you start up the synthesizer, that area is right there, but you can just pull it out like this. So that way you can play a patch and tweak it at the same time. Right now we just have a basic sine wave with some kind of envelope tied into it. And let's just have a look at that. Let's move this out of the way. So we have the oscillator going out to the amp, to a panning section. And then we have an output. It's on, of course, because, you know, otherwise we wouldn't hear any sound. And then you have an ADHSR, an envelope basically. Let's start by choosing the right type of waveform. So we double tap on the oscillator to bring this window up. And what we're going to do now is we're going to switch the waveforms here, either by doing that, tapping there, or switching like this. Let's play it at the same time. Now a square wave is perfect for something like this. What we're going to do now is we need to modulate this signal to make it sound like a theremin. When I was playing down here, the volume was very low, and then the volume went up as further up we went on the screen. And then we also had a vibrating function that got stronger the further up we moved our finger. So we need to modulate that too. And we're going to start by doing that. We're going to add an LFO to alternate the frequency of the oscillator just a slight bit to make it oscillate a bit. And then we're going to control how the LFO works with our finger. Tap the oscillator box to close it, and then go down here, and this is where we can put in our LFO. Double tap. This is a basic LFO, and we're not going to do anything here right now. What we're going to do now is go up to the oscillator, double tap it. I want to set how far we'll be able to play the theremin in frequency first. Let's listen. Now, it's moving in the wrong direction when I move my fingers up and down and side to side. I actually want to control the pitch and frequency of the oscillator sideways like this. So we have to tell this oscillator to listen to our finger, you know, like that. And to do that, we go to frequency. And so this is the X position, and this is the Y position on the touchscreen. Frequency, touch, on position, and position Y. Okay, so I think it's going too far low, you know, maybe a bit too high. We can adjust that area of which the frequencies are moving. Right now we have 100 Hertz down here. Let's move that up to just about like 500 Hertz. And then move down this point to about 2000. So you can move it fast like this, or you can just take it and pull it down, and you'll be able to fine adjust. That's better. Alright, so now that we have that, we also need to make the oscillator frequency oscillate a bit using the LFO. But we can't really put it on this right now, because right now we're controlling the frequency with our fingers. So how do we do that? Don't worry, there are more options in here. We can't see them. Hold down your finger and it will bring up a menu here. And everything that you see that have a plus sign are options that you can bring up. Press Alt frequency. So we're going to be able to modulate the frequency of our oscillator using the LFO this way. Now it's set to constant right now, but we're going to change that into LFO. It's got two modes, and right now I'm going to use this mode. And if you want to know more about that, go check my guide. Right now it's modulating, and we can see that. It looks like we're controlling the speed of the LFO sideways with the finger too. And I just heard that we're obviously controlling the signal from left to right in the mix with our finger up and down. I want to change that first. So we go down to the panning section, and we're just going to tell this one to be constant. And then put it to 50%. stays in the middle. And now we need to fine adjust the LFO. Okay, so the LFO speed changes sideways. Alright, so I kind of like how that sounds, but I don't want it to change sideways. I want it to change when I move my finger up and down. So I have to switch this to touch, position, X. But it's moving the other way around. I want it to be a low speed when I'm moving my finger down and a high speed when I'm moving up. Because right now you can see it's going faster when I move my finger down. There is a way to actually swap how the entire surface works, so you can swap everything from left to right and up to down, and that's not the way to do it. The way I do it is I simply switch these. So if I move this one up here and this one down here, it's gonna run in reverse. That sounds pretty cool. Alright, so now we have that. Now the next thing we need to do is to actually change the way the volume works too. Because when we move our finger down, we want the volume to go down. And when we move our finger up, we want the volume to go up. So let's go back up to the oscillator and hold down our finger because I want the amplitude option up too. Now the amplitude is constant, so the oscillator is putting out the highest maximum signal right now. If we modulate that with our finger instead, we're going to be able to control the volume of the oscillator out. And why I'm not doing this at the mix level is because I want to put some delay on this. And if I control the mix level, then it's gonna pull down the delay too. I don't want that. I only want to pull down the signal and volume for the oscillator so that the delay volume can stay the same. Let's choose the amplitude here and choose touch and position and X position, and that's that way. So now it works like this. So we have to switch it around again because now it's working in reverse. Just pull this one here, this one there. I don't want it to be completely quiet when I go down, so I'm gonna move this up a bit. Now that sounds pretty cool. So all we need now is a little bit of delay and we're done. Tap on that and we're gonna add the delay, and we do that there. And let's go to our performance area and play it. But wait, let's make it look good first. Now, I already have some graphical elements here, but I just want to show you how to randomize your graphical elements for the patches. So go to settings and then go to display, and then we go to override patch controller display. Press random, go to the performance, and oh, look at that. Look at that, that looks cool. And let's play our patch. When you load up TC-11, your iPad becomes an instrument. Now go finger your own surfaces and TC-11 patches. As usual, Doug Woods, Colin Sweeney, and me, Jakob Haq at soundtostroom.com, wishes you a very productive week. Now go finger your surfaces and have lots of fun doing it.